Oh, hello everybody. Jose Rodriguez here. I need to tell you a story of a 3880 owner, Epson Pro 3880 owner. The post is entitled Epson 3880 Problems. I have an Epson 3880 which has been a great printer for about a year or so. Yesterday it began to leave strange looking ink blotches on my prints, but only on one corner. I watched a couple of videos on YouTube and about cleaning the head and associated parts. He watched my video. I followed the directions to the letter and the problem got much worse. It started smearing ink on different parts of the prints. I cleaned the two boxes, which apparently cap the head. He means the purge pad. When the printer is turned off. I also cleaned the wiper blade and the face of the printhead by placing a folded paper towel saturated with Windex beneath the head and moving the head back and forth over this towel with the power off. Totally unnecessary. You don't do that unless you actually have to do that. And that is reserved only for printers with clogged nozzles, okay? That will not react to a nozzle cleaning or a what they call a cleaning cycle. You don't do that. If the wiper blade is working correctly and you keep that wiper blade clean, it will wipe the bottom of your printhead nozzle plate clean every once in a while. Every few strokes back and forth of that printhead carriage, that wiper will wipe the bottom of the plate and you'll be clean. You don't need to clean the bottom of your printer nozzle plate unless you absolutely have to. So try not to do that. So apparently this guy prints for money. So I have so many photos to print. And with this problem, I ordered an Epson Sure Color P400. So he ordered the P400, which is an analog to the what? To the Epson R2000. It uses the same exact inkjet. Okay. So totally different than the 3880. So it's not a K3 printer that only utilizes one photo black and one matte black. So your black and whites, your tonalities are not going to be as great because, or as beautifully defined because of the lack of gray inks or the light black and light black inks that the 3880 and the P800 and the P600 and the R3000 and the R2080, all of those printers use the same type of inkjet, K3 with vivid magenta. And so that does not really match the output of the simpler P400. So I don't know why he did that. Okay, so I can complete my orders. So he ordered a new printer so he can complete his orders. I would like to hear if someone knows a way to save my 3880. I would also like to hear from anyone who is using the P400, any tips. Okay, so he goes on and in further, lots of people start chiming in. And further down the line, he says that his P400 now is producing smears on his prints in some of the corners, usually the leading edges or the trailing edges. So I shake my head and I immediately answer back. I think it was just 3 sentences. What you have is head strikes. What is that? It means that the minute space between the bottom plate and the paper surface is being breached. Being breached by what? By paper that's not being held down flat. Okay. These printers do not have the ability to hold down paper flat. The moment that the last couple of inches leave those little transport rollers, and now you are sort of being pushed out only by those little pesky little pinwheel or pizza wheels, as they call it. Any curl on the paper will cause the paper to rise and then possibly rub on the bottom or literally touch the nozzle plate, and that will cause a smudge. Let me show you what I mean. I have a piece of paper here that seems perfect, okay? But when you lay it flat on a surface, such as my trimmer, you see that this edge is up a little bit. Now I have seen paper exaggerated, no kidding, like this, where the edge actually rises about ½ inch. That will cause a head strike. This will cause a head strike. So you must make sure that when you feed that paper, unless you have a professional vacuum fed type printer where the paper is actually held down by vacuum and transported that way perfectly flat throughout the whole process, or you're printing on roll, then you will always succumb to this kind of problem. Okay, where possibly as the paper emerges and the exit tray usually is lower than the paper, so the paper comes out about an inch above the tray, and then by gravity it just goes down. Well, this action causes this end to rise, and it will then be struck by the head and create a smudge. And so I suggested that. I told him that his paper wasn't flat and the smudges were caused by head strikes. Check your paper. Everybody's still chiming in, you know, we're playing phone tag here. And about an hour later, he says, problem solved, Joe. You hit it right on the head. So he went ahead. He had been using a particular 5x7 paper on his 3880, and when he laid it flat, it was extremely raised at the ends, and that's what was causing that. So make sure. Now wait, before I get to the make sure, this guy ended up spending what, $400 and something for the P400 unnecessarily, because there was nothing at all wrong with his, you know, trusty Pro 3880. Nothing at all wrong. It was all a cause of curl on the paper. So now he has a new printer, so you know that's fine, and he makes money printing, so not so bad. But you know that's $450 unnecessarily spent. So that is a lesson to learn. If you get smudges, especially on a printer that's not even a couple of years old, check to see whether your paper is curly or curled in some end. You will not see it when you're holding it, because as you see, it flexes. Lay it down flat and see if it rises anywhere along the surface. If it's curled like that, you will very likely get a head strike. If it's curled in the back, you will get a head strike as the paper emerges. If it's curled in the front, you'll get it as the paper begins to be printed upon. And that is why, I'll tell you this, I'll use a bad word, this is why everybody bitches about Canon printers and their fine art setting imposing a 35 millimeter border. Okay, the reason is this. Why can't you print borderless or close to the edges? Because it is only to be used with fine art papers, and these fine art papers are usually not very flat. Okay, so what you want is no printing taking place for the first 35 millimeters. Then it begins to print. By that point, that edge of the paper, the front edge, is already being held down. Everything is being held down nice and flat. So there's no chance for this paper to be, you know, curling up at the beginning. And the same thing happens at the end. By the time the paper is here, you've already done printing. The edges of the image is here, and there's no chance of printing beyond that. And so this edge will come out clean. And that's the only reason that they impose that. They know how prevalent head strikes are. Now people scream and yell about Canon printers doing that, but that's the reason they do it. And the answer is for your own good. It just doesn't sink in, but it really is for your own good. If you're printing on $7 a sheet paper, you really, believe me, you don't want that to happen. So that's why they impose that border. And it's not on the right and left. It's only on the leading and trailing edge. Why? Because that's where head strikes occur. All right, so that is that. I'm so glad that person found out. A lot of people continue to bombard him with, you know, possibilities. None of them made sense and none of them were correct. I hit it right on the head again. And I'm not saying I'm a smart ass. I just happen to know that that's the cost of most 99% of head strikes. And that is it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this prevents you from having to buy a new printer. Check that paper before you go plunk down $500 or so for a new printer to replace the one that you think is malfunctioning because it's making smudges on your pretty prints. Don't do that. Check the paper first. It has to be perfectly flat. Now, as printers become more and more sophisticated, and the companies are willing to provide the customer with better and more advanced functionality, they might go ahead and introduce vacuum assist, at least assist, like the Canon IPF 1000. They have vacuum assisted feed, and that solves a lot of the problems that occurs with some of these papers that are not RC. RC papers are relatively flat, but the fiber-based papers, the papers that you use mostly for fine art printing, tend not to be so flat. So be careful with that. And they're not so flat, and they cost 3-4 times more per sheet than this cheaper RC paper. So be careful, check your paper, and you will not suffer from smudges due to head strikes. All right, that's it. Thank you once again. We're almost at the end of the year. I should have another couple of videos to go before the last seconds of 2016. And I appreciate all your support that you have given me this year so far. I just recently received some support donations, and you know who you are. Thank you so much. That will really help. And again, remember, I had to buy a new computer. I had to shell out a substantial amount of money for that, and this will help to pay off, or at least to reduce the cost of having to buy a new computer. My computer was about 10 years old, and I've been trying to upgrade it here and there, but it's getting to the point where it just cannot handle the new applications that are out there for editing video, which is what I mainly do, as well as photos. It can handle photos quite well, but not video. All right. Thank you once again. Please share, subscribe, and like. Until the next time, which will be maybe tomorrow, the next day. Tomorrow, Saturday, and then Sunday is already 2017. So thank you once again. Happy printing, everyone, and bye-bye.